We're reviewing the AT&T Byron Nelson because in the preview of our PGA Championship, this is going to go straight into the bucket system. So what you see on the screen is the bucket system for the AT&T Byron Nelson. What I want you to focus your attention on is this column right here that says this year's totals. We can see how many golfers from each of these buckets. So basically you're looking at each of these buckets over here and then cross-referencing all the way across to see how many top 10 golfers or how many golfers were inside the top 10 for each of those buckets, how many were in the optimal lineup, and how many were in the sweet spot optimal. Now, we don't really look at the sweet spot optimal when it comes to looking at the success of this column. We just look at the numbers in here. These numbers have to fall in between the numbers over here. Now, the max projection we always round up, and the min projection we always round down. So I can see one scenario that we need to look at be your last year's sixes. Now, we had 5 golfers right here, this number right here, 5 golfers that were inside the top 10. My projection shows we wanted 2 to 4. Remember, we're rounding up in the max projection, we're rounding down in the min. So that projection is 2 to 4. So you're like, oh, you failed, that one failed. However, we're chasing the optimal lineup. This is just kind of if you wanted to look at like a tracking system, this is the general vicinity we want to be in. The optimal lineup is the exact location we want to be. So there were 4 golfers in the optimal lineup from that bucket. Ding, 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 ding. It is within that 2 to 4 range. So therefore it nets a yes for success. And that applies for every bucket. When you scroll all the way down, 36 out of 36 buckets were correct. We even said, or I had mentioned, we didn't even really have to look at the tournament history buckets if you didn't want. Because at the AT&T Byron Nelson, they were playing TPC Craig Ranch, which it was the 3rd year that it had been played there. We really had our first look at course history. If we wanted to use course history just for those 3 years, we could have. I didn't really feel comfortable just using course history, so I used tournament history, which went back to 2013. That included golf courses like Las Colinas. Oh, shoot, I already forgot the other one. One of them that I think Aaron Wise won at. Trinity Forest, I think that was the other one. And then obviously TPC Craig Ranch. But had you used the tournament history buckets, those also hit. Those were successful, 100% successful. So again, bucket system was 100% successful, which gives us the best opportunity for the sweet spot optimal to actually be the optimal. Let's double check to see if that actually happened this week. So I come here to the 2023 recent form page. I see the optimal left $600 on the table. The sweet spot optimal did not. So the optimal and the sweet spot optimal were not the same. But as long as the sweet spot optimal can beat the GPP winning lineup, that means the sweet spot process was successful this week. There is one more component to bring into this, but I'll add it here at the end. And that's the Marquee Tee Times, because that also is included in the sweet spot optimal that you can't see here on the screen. So when it comes to the optimal, we left $600 on the table. And we started with Tyrrell Hatton, which is very interesting because Tyrrell Hatton and Scottie Scheffler were your only 10K golfers for the Byron Nelson. This was almost a spitting image of the Mexico Open, where Jon Rahm and Tony Finau were your only 10K golfers, 10K and above golfers. Tony Finau was the lesser priced golfer at the Mexico Open, whereas Jon Rahm was the most expensive golfer. Finau was in the optimal lineup there. This year, Scheffler and Hatton, the only 10K golfers. Tyrrell was in the optimal lineup. So that's crazy. A lot of people were saying this is an exact copy. And guess what? Tony Finau was first place at the Mexico Open. Rahm was second place. Here, Hatton was in the optimal lineup in 5th place. Scottie was also in 5th place, but not in the optimal. He actually scored 5.5 less points than Tyrrell Hatton. So it's fun. Like this fantasy golf stuff there are layers to it. So very interesting. If you did start with Scottie, like the GPP winning lineup, by the way, we'll get there. You were doing just fine. You were doing just fine. So anyways, the optimal starts with Tyrrell Hatton at $10,100. Jason Day, $9,400. Siwoo Kim at $9,100. Austin Eckroat, that is, at $7,000. Norman Vincent at $7,200. And CT Pan which if you're with me in the preview video as well as the strategy video, we talked about CT Pan a lot. He was one of my favorite plays. This is a shout out to Gabriel Brown, who tried to convince me that CT Pan, I mean, he saw him at the Wells Fargo he had, what's that, kinesiology tape, or I forget what it's called. I think it's kinesiology tape on his wrist. It's like, yeah, he didn't look sharp. And he played okay at the Wells Fargo, but I was like excited to use CT Pan. I think has won on tour before. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he's a quality golfer and someone to keep your eye on, honestly. CT Pan, absolutely. In the Rainmakers, by the way, get those cards super cheap right now, man. Go get them super cheap and then sell them when because he's going to be, I think there's going to be a couple tournaments coming up where he has a chance to win, or he's going to be a good fit for some of these tournaments. So anyways, I talked about him in the preview, talked about him in the strategy. We went over Tee Time. Like, go watch that strategy video. I rewatched it as I was trying to find all the names to do giveaways. Lots of good information in that strategy video. This is a reminder to myself in the future to go and check out that strategy video that I put out for the Byron Nelson, because it was really good. So anyways, you basically could have started your lineups with excuse me. You could literally start your lineups with a 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 6. However, you still have to make your 2 substitutions, right? Actually, I think we just make 1. So we have Tyrrell at 10 and Day at 9. We do not have an 8K golfer, but we sub that 8K golfer up to a 9K, and then we got our 2 7s and a 6. So we just did 1 substitution. Worked out. Your GPP winning lineup, by the way, started with Scotty Scheffler, Jason Day. That's where you started. And then he went to 3 7K golfers. Vincent, Gim, and Eckroat. 3 7K golfers, and then CT Pan at $6,600. He left $900 on the table. This is your $5 drive the green. Left $900 on the table. That's pretty ballsy, and it worked out for him. So congratulations. The optimal scored 794 points. Your GPP winning lineup scored 756. So there's like 34 points between the two. Well, give or take. Well, what did I say? Yeah, almost exactly 40 points between the two. Your Sweet Spot Optimal scored 775 points. So it does overtake the GPP winning lineup, which just ensures the Sweet Spot process this the week for the AT&T Byron Nelson was 100% successful. And your Sweet Spot Optimal started with Tyrrell, Day, Siwoo, and then 3 7K. So we make our 2 substitutions. We sub an 8 up to a 9, and we sub a 6 up to a 7. Ryan Palmer was one of those that I talked a lot about. CT Pan, although he was not in the Sweet Spot Optimal, he was also talked about. But yeah, okay, never mind. I don't know where I was going with that one, but I did talk a lot about Ryan Palmer. Now, to discuss some interesting information when it comes to Marquee Tee Times and just Tee Times in general, remember in the the strategy video, we sorted from game top down. Someone was like, "Hey, do you like CT Pan a little bit more now that he's one of the first golfers out?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, of course I do." We did this exercise. We looked at all of the years I had Tee Times for, and we noticed within the first 4 to 5 groups there were 2 golfers that were in the optimal lineup. Now, let's see here. Trying to do this carefully. There we go. So basically, it goes by groups like this. You can see all the different game numbers or whatever. We had an optimal lineup here, CT Pan. He was in the 2nd game, but that was the first group to go out on hole 10. So basically, every odd number starts, basically, this would be the first group out. CT Pan would also be part of the first group. This Kazire, Austin Cook, Chris Stroud group would be the 2nd group out on hole 1. And then Bez and those would be the 2nd group out on hole 10. So 3rd group, fourth group, all the way down to our fifth group, we get Tyrrell Hatton. I was a huge Adam Scott truther. I thought it was Adam Scott, and that was fine. He finished 8th place. That was pretty darn good. But Tyrrell Hatton was in the fifth group down here. If you add him and CT Pan, if you started there, like we were talking about, you know, 2 golfers within the first 4 or 5 groups were going to be in the optimal lineup. Well, shoot, I was really close when it came to Adam Scott. He finished 8th, scored 112 points. I mean, Tyrrell scored 127, so he probably was still going to beat Adam Scott even if Scott finished in 5th place. It was pretty close, I really liked Adam Scott, and I always tell you never fall in love with a 6K golfer, so I wouldn't even have said go all in on CT Pan, but I also went all in on Matty Schmidt. So I don't really take my advice that well sometimes. I wanted to be really aggressive, and hey, by the way, I forgot to mention this in the beginning. I took down a GPP this year, for this week, for the Byron Nelson. I won the quarter arcade. Not the highest entry fee GPP I wish it would have been. It would have been great to do that in the $5, but the lineup I put together in the quarter arcade won. And if it was in the $5, it would have finished 7th place. So I'm hopeful, or I was glad to win a GPP. That was one of the goals. That was one of the goals this year, was to win a GPP. So we finally did. So that feels good. I should go find that lineup. I think I posted it on Twitter for people to see. Yep. Here we go. So I had Tyrrell Hatton, Jason Day, Benny Ann, Seabez, Ryan Palmer, and CT Pan. See, when I was talking about Ryan Palmer and CT Pan, of course, and I had my guy CT Pan in there. I believe this was a lineup strictly built out of FOMO. I kid you not. I think I'm like, I don't have a lot of Tyrrell Hatton lineups. I might as well just build a bunch of Tyrrell and Jason Day lineups because I'm not going to play them in any of my lineups. This was a completely FOMO lineup, but Ryan Palmer and CT Pan, those were golfers that I wanted to have exposure to. So, hey, we did it. Took down the quarter arcade. Actually, here. Just further proof. Quarter jukebox, not the arcade. Still, same thing. Quarter jukebox. We got first. 711 points. Yeah, pretty sweet. Now, just to wrap up on the SweetSpot process, I go with the Marquee Tee Times. And if you don't know what the Marquee Tee Times are, they're basically a rank order of golfers in a group that have the lowest SweetSpot score combined. Or the SweetSpot rank combined, but it also is that would be the highest score. So the rank. So I just tally up all these rankings, like the Scheffler, Day, KH, Lee lineup that had 12. That when you add these numbers up, the SweetSpot ranks, it comes out to 12. When you add up the Hatton, Hideki Matsuyama, and Tom Kim lineup, that equals 13. So obviously this is group 1. This would be group 2. So group 1, group 2. And I rank order these. So I look at the top 9 groups. I only look at the top 9 because that's unfortunately the amount of groups that allows me, that Excel allows me to use. So can't really do much about that, but it's these top 9 groups. And basically the rule is you choose 2 to 4 groups and you find 1 golfer from each of those groups to put in your lineup. You do not want to pair golfers up from the same group together because you don't see that in the optimal lineup very often. So you can already tell Scheffler and Day being highlighted in blue, they're your GPP. They're in the GPP winning lineup. So the GPP winner did that. He put those golfers together. So yeah, you can still win a GPP, but this is about hitting the optimal lineup. And that isn't how you do it. In fact, you can get there with one of the guys, Jason Day. And then there's Tyrrell Hatton. So 2 golfers were in the optimal lineup at the AT&T Byron Nelson. So again, the SweetSpot process was 100% correct. Also, when you use the SweetSpot process, you could have built a lineup that had Tyrrell, Jason Day, as well as Ryan Palmer in the Marquee Tee Times. And it was perfect. And by the way, that was my quarter arcade. Tyrrell, Jason Day, and Ryan Palmer. I practice what I preach. I know I just recently said don't fall in love with a 6K golfer, and you know I kind of break that rule every once in a while, but you know sometimes you get greedy and you just want to. But the one rule I won't break is the Marquee Tee Times. I'll always choose 2 to 4 groups and only one golfer each because I like to play the numbers. It's a little different than picking a 6K golfer. I'm gonna defend myself here. Picking a 6K golfer, if you can find the right one, that like substantially narrows down your player pool. So you have a better chance to hit the optimal lineup if you do find the right 6K golfer. It's a lottery in the 6K range. It's impossible. Like, don't do that. It's not smart. So that's just my 2 cents on that. Okay. Well, I hope y'all did well. This is the 2nd year in a row that the AT&T Byron Nelson has done me well. I won the Nagels Bagels last year, and that winner take all was $450. This one, obviously, I won the quarter jukebox, which was $250, so I got that. But I also took down a winner take all, one of those $50 ones where you just put a quarter in. I don't put a lot of money into stuff. I think I had $59 into this week, and I came out with $320. So pretty good ROI. It was great. Byron Nelson's has been very good to me. So anyways, that wraps up the review of the AT&T Byron Nelson. So hopefully that'll give you a little bit more confidence using the SweetSpot process going forward.